So I want to talk to you about something that's really important to me and something I think is also really important to society. And it's taking care of the most disadvantaged people in our communities. And so as I look at that, okay, thank you. I think one of the ways that we can do that is by making the book truly accessible. And you guys all know about the glory of books, but I see it at the front end. I see people who see the book as their ticket to an education, their ticket to employment, their ticket to actual inclusion in society for people who have disadvantages that generally put them short of the mark. Now, we're really proud of what we've done at Bookshare. We're the largest online library for people with print disabilities. We have 130,000 members right now, more than 95,000 books. And our users are downloading books at a rate of more than 1 million books a year. So we're actually delivering on a lot of this promise, but I don't think we've come anywhere close to where we really need to be. Now, the people that I work on are the most disadvantaged, and we operate primarily under a copyright exception, so we don't pay a royalty or have to get permission to use these books. But our users are the kind of person who cannot use a standard print book effectively. And so they're blind, they're low vision, they're physically disabled, some maybe who's a quadriplegic, and also people who are severely dyslexic. And we're not talking about the 14-year-old who reads like they're 12. We're talking about the 14-year-old who reads like they're at age 6. In other words, they're just not anywhere close to their peers, and they need these kind of services. Now, what I want to talk to you today is about something that you probably wouldn't expect from me as someone who sort of gives away publishers' content. I want you guys to get me out of the business of giving away your product for free. I want you to change my library from being the primary source of books for people with disabilities to becoming a secondary source. Just like the public library today is not the primary source of books for the general population. Primary source is that people go out and buy your product. Okay? We're doing well here? Okay. We'll have the demo up shortly, I'm sure, in about 4 minutes. So that's my goal today, and that's why I'm going to kind of cover these topics with you. So I want to convince you that there's an untapped market here. And we're going to start off with the people that I currently serve. About 2 people out of 1,000 is visually impaired enough to qualify for my service. 1 person out of 1,000 qualifies for my service because they have a physical disability. And about 10 out of 1,000, about 1%, are so severely dyslexic they need my service. So our service deals with that 1% most disadvantaged people when it comes to reading books. But I have to turn down every day all sorts of people who want our accessible books for people who are disadvantaged, but not so disadvantaged or don't fit under this copyright exception. So I go to schools. There are at least 10% of the kids in schools have other disabilities that don't qualify under the copyright exception. Students with learning disabilities, moderate dyslexia, ADHD, autism, psychiatric disabilities, developmental disabilities. And we can see that accessible electronic books would actually help these folks, but they can't buy the accessible book typically today from the commercial sector, and I can't deliver it to them. So I think this is a big opportunity, and it's not just people with disabilities. You know, there are a whole bunch of people who don't read so well. You know, people who are English language learners, people who probably have a learning disability, but they've never been through the process of getting diagnosed, and then just people who learn differently. So this is a significant market. Now, you know, do I say that all 25% of these people are going to buy that? But you're not even giving them really a chance. And so that's the exciting opportunity that I see ahead. And the reason that they're kind of cut short is that they're kind of collateral damage in the fight against piracy. And, technical protection mechanisms are a pretty blunt instrument. I might want it in Braille, I might want it in text-to-speech, but if the TPM has turned that off, technical protection mechanism, I can't do that. And, most TPMs are kind of stupid. Do I want that text to put it up on the internet for free, or do I want that text to turn into Braille? Can't tell the difference? Lock them both down. So what we've got today is essentially dueling moral high grounds. We have two social goods that we all agree are goods, right? We've got the rights of publishers to make a buck. We've got the civil rights of people with disabilities to get access to the information they need for education and employment. And if we put these two things in conflict, both of us are less for that battle. And I don't think it has to be that way. And that's actually my main goal today, is to convince you that there are some great opportunities here. Because there are no winners when there are these dueling moral high grounds. So what are we going to do? Well, I actually think the publishing industry is one of the most socially responsible industries I've ever run into. And of course, you guys probably know a lot about why that's so. We already get tremendous support from publishers. Last year was the first year where the majority of books in Bookshare, instead of being scanned by our members, or parents, or teachers, or colleges, the majority of content came from the publishing industry for free. So, and not only do they give us beautiful XML files, which we can quickly turn into accessible files, they also give us rights to serve people with disabilities outside the United States. See, our copyright exception only works in the US, and so for the last 8 years of Bookshare's existence, I've had to be answering angry emails from blind Canadians and people from other parts of the world saying, no, I'm sorry, copyright exception doesn't apply in your country. But if I have permission of the publisher voluntarily, then I can do that. So now about a quarter of our books, 25,000, come with these rights. The majority of the top 10 trade publishers in the US have already given us these blanket rights, and Robin Seaman, who's our publisher liaison, is at all of these conferences talking to publishers about how they can be socially responsible and do this sort of social good. But often we can help solve a financial problem for publishers. See, especially in, say, higher education, there's a compliance mechanism. You have to give accessible files to schools that are asking for it for disabled students. So we're also taking over essentially accessibility requests for quite a number of publishers. These are both larger publishers like Random House that just says, everybody who wants an accessible book, just go to Bookshare, you'll get it for free, no problem. O'Reilly was our first publisher partner. I'm sure that surprises no one in this audience. But as Tim O'Reilly put it, he said, look, right now he was dealing with individual requests. His team was dealing with it. He said, I'm dealing with disabled people retail. You deal with disabled people retail. Why don't I deal with you wholesale? And O'Reilly's gone one step further. Something that I think is also beneficial to the publishing audience. They've asked for our accessible files in the DAISY format, that's the leading disability-specific XML format. They've asked for those files back, and now they're part of O'Reilly's main business. You can not only get, you can get O'Reilly books in these formats and DAISY, and it's just part of the commercial activity. That's where I think we need to go. And smaller publishers, university presses, don't have XML files. We take their content, take it from PDF, turn it into nice XML, hand it back to the publisher, and they can quickly turn it into EPUB, because we've done 90% of what it costs to do that conversion. So I think we're pulling together with the publishing industry and solving these problems. And one of the things, the whole thing Bookshare was trying to accomplish was to stop people from scanning books over and over and over again. It used to be that when the new Harry Potter came out, we had 3,000 families go out and buy the book and spend 4 hours at a flatbed scanner, turning page by page, scanning every page, and at the end of the 4 hours, they had a crappy OCR version of that book. And think about the number of person years that just got blown that day or two after the new Harry Potter book came out. So the whole idea of Bookshare is someone scans it once, someone proofreads it and marks it up. Okay, now we've spent maybe 8 hours, and now suddenly tens of thousands of people can download that book and get access to it. But it's that whole removing duplication of effort that I think is this, and the best way to remove that duplication of effort is to produce an accessible product that people can actually buy. So we've got some good news, and it's the technology has made this easier for us all. We've got convergence happening all over the place, and of course, a lot of you guys know George Kirscher. George is both the head of the DAISY consortium and also head of the IDPF, and the next version of EPUB is going to be the same as the next version of DAISY. So we actually are going to have literally the same format that you guys use for so much of your digital publishing is going to be the same format that we want to use for accessibility. So we've got that sort of thing going. We've got technology convergence around images. You see, Bookshare has kind of begun to solve the problem for, let's say, blind and severely disabled people in the United States around access to text. But just as we're starting to solve that problem, books are becoming more multimedia. And suddenly textbooks aren't just text and a few graphics. They're going online, they're interactive. So we have this big challenge around image accessibility. Well, this same opportunity to get together and sort of join together is happening in the image area. Our organization, the DAISY Consortium, and WGBH of Boston, people at the National Center of Accessible Media there, got together. We have something called the Diagram Center. And the Diagram Center is going to build a bunch of open source tools to make it easy to add textual descriptions of graphics. Also make it easier to produce tactile graphics for blind people. But it's this great thing. And you know what? Look, here's a convergence of interests. Imagine that I have a graphic from a textbook, and we've just had a crowdsourced volunteer spend 4 minutes describing what that graphic is trying to say. That's great for accessibility. It's exactly what we need. But suddenly, what we've done is we've enhanced the value of that image for the people who actually own that image, right? What if all of your images came with a 40 or 50 word description? Boy, you could probably find image assets that you couldn't find before and reuse them. So we have to come up with some. It's going to be a rights issue, but it's also going to be a technical issue. But the technology is going to make this really easy to do. And we also find ourselves with, what's the right way of putting it? Blind people, disabled people have the same problem general consumers have. They want a book that will work for them. So the same issue that you guys are facing, where an ebook buyer wants to know, will this book work on my hardware device, or will this book work in my software? Well, it's exactly analogous to what blind people want. Can I put this book in a Braille display? Can I get this in large print? Can I get this in a text-to-speech that has the spotlighting that I need to be effective? And so, this technology convergence means that I think we're going to get together on metadata standards, and again, people are going to benefit from that. So it's really quite exciting. And the thing I keep telling people is, we have reinvented accessibility for books. What it used to be that you would need to spend, a lot of time in a recording studio to record an audio version of the book, or you'd need to pay an expert Brailleist to essentially typewrite your Braille book. That was really expensive. That meant disabled people were coming up short. But because we've had this great convergence, producing accessible formats is just pushing a button. Push a button, it's digital Braille. Push a button, it's text-to-speech. Wow, this is so cool. So anyway, I'm going to show you a brief demonstration. So I think we're ready for Elmo. Okay, and let's see here. Try not to do that. Oh, it says I'm supposed to be giving a keynote right now. Oh, cool. Okay, so there we go, ready to go. Okay, so yeah, let's just a little further up. Beautiful. This could be a really quick demo. So this is our new iPad app. And you would not believe, we let our users vote on the features they want, the things that they want. They can ask for any book, and we'll go out and get it for them. We ask them what technical features. I think we had 400 votes for, you need an iPad app. And I think the closest next vote was 50. So it's like, this is what people ask for. So we just announced this at the major disability tech show at the end of January. It's called Read to Go. It's $20. And it has essentially the killer feature for people with severe dyslexia. And of course, it works for blind people and other people. But let's see if we can do this here.
He found what he was looking for in his inside pocket. It seemed to be a silver cigarette lighter. He flicked it open, handed.
And that's a little sample of Harry Potter. But you see how that sort of karaoke, follow the bouncing ball thing's going on? It turns out that when you're dyslexic and you want to be taught how to read, it almost always turns into this sort of multimodal sort of thing. That's actually the basis of how expert teachers of dyslexic kids work. They want you to see it and hear it, and if you could taste it and feel it at the same time, that would be beautiful. So I think we're done with the Elmo when you guys are ready for that. So, but anyway, so let's, yeah, great. So my main message, let's go ahead, is the advocacy community wants to move from a charity model, the disability advocacy community, from a charity model, the copyright exception, and they want to basically buy your product. And I think you guys know there's a Reading Rights Coalition that's been picketing the Authors Guild and suing universities, and but what they really are, they're suing for, in their mind, equality, the ability to be like everybody else and simply buy the product. So that's the goal. And so, and there's a lot of hot issues going on right now about this. So for example, in K-12, we have a solution where every K-12 textbook publisher has to put their book in an XML format in a repository. And so any book published after 2006 now has to go into this repository. Full text, full graphics, and our library is the biggest user of this repository. There's now, I think, 30 states where the state has authorized us that any student who needs a book that's in this repository, they basically ask us for it. We go get it for them, and we add it to our library in under a week. So, these are unprecedented sort of turnaround times. We take this and we, turn around. But, the question is coming up, what do we do in higher education? It's a very different market, as you guys know, but the problem is there. We have more and more students going to college. If you go to a community college, often you might find 15 or 20% of the students have some kind of learning disability, and they may only discover it when they actually get to college and are really, really struggling with reading or some other challenge like that. So right now there's a federal commission that's been set up. It's got a 1-year timetable. George Kirscher's on it. I'm on it. Members of the publishing industry are on it. And what we're supposed to do is come up with a solution to what we do in higher ed. And one of the questions is, do we want to replicate this sort of centralized repository model like we have in K-12, or do we want to do something different? And I can tell you that we actually, and of course I'm not speaking on behalf of the commission or its official report or any of that kind of stuff, but I think people all believe that the right solution is that college students should be able to buy accessible books, and that we will need less and less of this sort of specialized group of libraries that kind of do this business. So, and we're saying we want you to make money, we want you to sell accessible books, but that's kind of the carrot. But we know there is this this stick out there, which is we're back to the dueling moral high grounds. Right? If the civil rights of disabled people are denied, they will ask for remedy in the courts. And so it's much easier just to say, all right, let's not even go there. Let's work with this disability community, solve this problem, and actually build a product that's fundamentally accessible. Now, when we started Bookshare, the people who were most worried about it were the textbook vendors. And we actually stayed away from textbooks the first couple of years just to kind of assuage the angst that came with this. And that was 8 years ago. That angst hasn't gone away. People are still terrified about what copying is. But we're getting better at figuring out these business models, and we're getting better at the technology to make these sort of things happen. So, there are a lot of different ways that you can sell essentially accessible books, right? One is to do mainstream, universal designed books. In other words, just to have the books come. And O'Reilly, of course, has pioneered this. They don't use DRM on their books, and they still seem to have a viable business model, and I wish more people would follow that lead, and maybe 10 years from now, most of us will be there. You might end up, with some specialty versions of this, sort of hybrid things. I'll give you a couple examples of how this hybrid thing might work. Our main product to disabled people is the digital text, especially our severely disabled people. I mean, it's really around seeing the text, hearing the text, getting it in Braille, stuff like that. It's not actually a commercial quality ebook, okay? You won't go to a pirate ebook site and find one of our books on there, because that's not what pirates want. They want really high quality, image-based versions of the book that are commercial quality. So there is an opportunity here now to sort of maybe use sort of more of a social DRM approach, which is our main DRM is social DRM. We fingerprint the books, and that way if the book ends up on the internet for free, we know who did it, we turn off their library service, we tell the publisher, we ask the publisher if they want to sue the person. The answer is no, but we're really glad you guys are doing something about it. Well, the social DRM seems to work pretty well on the text. So maybe a hybrid solution would be the text has this less constrained thing. We can use the text for accessibility and continue to protect high-quality image-based versions of the book. And these two things can coexist technically. It's not that hard to do. And of course, another way of doing it is to deliver the book online in the cloud, so the person doesn't download the entire book, and so it's easier to kind of control access to the entire book. These are problems we can solve. They're actually, coming to us. And so I think that it's better to meet this social need this way, making the book accessible, take advantage of this incredible amount of convergence that's going on here. And when, you guys talk to the disability community, what I want the answer to be is, here's some money, please, can I buy your product? And, if you're not quite ready to do it, organizations like mine are standing by, willing to do it. We've been talking to the publishing industry a lot about a concept we call book access. And book access will be the accessible online bookstore to Bookshare's free online library. And this is an idea that came from some higher ed publishers that said pretty much, hey, look, what if we gave you the same discount we give other distributors? Could you do all the accessibility work on 25% and get to any scale? And the answer is sure. So we need to make it really easy for people to do this. I think that an organization like mine will still be sort of the safety net. I don't think the need for disability access services are ever going to go away, but I think the majority of people I served, even if that 1%, would rather buy an accessible product and let me take care of the blind person who needs a specialized Braille version that I don't think will ever be commercially viable. But most of the need is commercially viable, and you've got this bottom quarter that all would love to have access to this product. And remember, these are the poorest people. These are the least interesting market to you right now, but they could be customers. I mean, my vision of the ebook industry is you guys are starting pretty much from the top of the consumer, the richest consumers, and working their way down. Who can afford an iPad? Well, it's not the average, student in U.S. schools right now. And I'm working from essentially the 1% most disadvantaged and working up. And I think that if we just keep these conversations going, we can make a huge impact on the people that I care about and that I think you ultimately do care about. If we give people with disabilities an equal shot at accessing your content, then they're going to have one less barrier facing them to getting an education or getting a job. And they want the dignity of being able to buy your book. So I want you to unlock the potential of the book, but also unlock the potential of this community that our country needs to not be in a dependency situation that needs sort of independence, the ability to be full members of our society, pay taxes, raise families, do all that cool stuff. And, getting access to books isn't going to solve all that problem, but boy, that's one big barrier that they don't have to face. So if we do this, if we unlock the potential of the book and of this community, we're going to find ourselves making the book truly accessible for everybody. Thank you. So I understand we have an opportunity for questions if people are interested.
Right ahead.
So, of course, I can't quite see. Do we have any questions, or do we have that I can tackle here? I'm not spotting anyone. Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to say thanks a lot, and I'm certainly here, George is here, Robin is here. We're all really excited about talking to you about this potential, and I'm looking forward to making this happen for the people I really care about. Thanks again.